So here, you're hearing this, viewer, and this is the end of the episode we just recorded, and it was supposed to be about an overview of the game dev pipeline. However, we thought complete nonsense from beginning to end, and we're rebranding this to be about, I don't know, Nina, talk more about it. I can't focus.
Basically, we'll be sharing our experiences from different game development experience, and both, from when we were in school, indie, smaller studios, to AAA studios. And
was it educational? No. Was it interesting? Yes.
Ooh, spicy content,
Ooh,
baby.
Spicy like this meat that I just had my second glass of. Clean.
What kind of meat is that?
It's from this place in Redmond. What's it called? Woodinville, called River Park. Sky River.
Sky River, yes! It's near the Japan.
Yeah, it's my favorite meat that they have, that it's literally just tastes like honey with alcohol.
Oh, I love that place so much.
Yeah, they have very good stuff.
Okay, so my name is Nina Petchprapa, and here's my co-host.
Well, yeah, my name is Fernanda, and I'm a tech artist as well. I'm drinking my mead, and it's only gonna get worse from here.
We definitely need some help with adult libation to get through this heavy topic on game dev pipeline.
Before we talk about game dev pipeline, Nina, do you want to talk about the comments we received on our work from home video? Because we asked people to call in and tell us about the cons, and we couldn't think of any. And some people actually told us of a few that I think might be worth mentioning.
So first comment is from Doug. He said, the main con that I can think of is it's harder for me to remain motivated to work when I have so many distractions and so little external accountability. This can be combated by explicitly asking a coworker to agree to let me check in with them in 2 hours or whatever and show them what I've got done. But it's sadly quite easy for me to allow myself to blow off that. 100% agree. So much distraction working from home.
Yeah. How do you mitigate that, Nina? You don't.
I don't. Well, first of all, I think I may have mentioned this already, but I like at least kind of dress up a little bit as if I were to go out to the office, so that I feel like, okay, yes, I'm not in pajamas anymore, and that gets me more into like a working mode. What about you, Fernanda?
I stay in my pajamas all day. Nice. I only put like my hoodie on when I have to call someone. I don't know, it's just because we do a lot of programming, it's hard for me not to focus. I get into the zone and I just stay in the zone, and when you break out of the zone, it sucks to get back into. And I responded to Doug on YouTube saying that my team has a habit of posting every morning like our to-do list for the day, and then at the end of the day we post again, and we post an end of the day list of what we accomplished. So I feel like it makes me want to work more, because I don't want to reach the end of the day and not post like, oh, I didn't get anything done, you guys. Nice.
It's just like fear motivation.
Yeah, more like a commitment to your team, I'd say.
Okay.
But we got another comment from Ryan, my buddy Ryan, and they say, I've been loving the podcast. Thank you, Ryan. The cons I can think: 1, the uptick in at-home bills and supplies, water bill, groceries, internet, general office supplies has been noticeable, but with saving money on gas and eating out, it could equal out. And 2nd, some people, including myself, may not have the best space for a work from home office, so it's harder to separate work from relaxation. My desk is in my bedroom. Since I can't have it in any space, someone can walk by with, someone can walk by and you have like something NDA related on your screen. That's totally true. Yeah, I don't have to deal with that because I don't have roommates, but I have friends.
That is really nice.
Yeah, like I have friends who, well, you have a roommate too, so like, but do you have a separate
my own room?
Space? Yeah.
And bedroom separated from that too, so it's like a nice little office. But yeah, I can totally see that.
Yeah, like the bills going up was definitely very true for me on water bills specifically, because when I worked at Amazon, I used to shower after the gym at the office.
Mm-hmm.
So there were days where I just wouldn't shower at home.
Oh,
So my water bill
huh.
went up.
I feel like
Groceries,
the most noticeable bill would be electricity,
yeah.
especially like I'm using my company's computer, and this thing heats up so much. Like I could just not turn the heater on and my room would be toasty during winter.
Ooh,
And combining with the dev kits that I have in my room, like that's a lot of power going into there.
yeah, my electricity bill definitely went up, but also I started living in California and I moved here right in the summer slash fire season. So I'm like, yeah, I don't care if it's gonna be expensive. I need that air conditioning. Um, but yeah, having that separation of work and like other aspects of your life is very important. I remember when I was in Redmond, my desk was also in my bedroom. And it does kind of suck to like wake up, walk 2 steps, you're at work, and then you finish work, walk 2 steps, you're in your bed. Like, it sucks. It's nice to have separation.
Mm-hmm. Are you able to at least set up your desk in a living room or something now?
Yeah, I have, so rent in Sacramento is so much better than Redmond. I actually have a 2 bedroom apartment.
Nice.
Yeah, so 1 bedroom is my office and the other one is just my regular bedroom. I even close the door to my office sometimes so I can keep that separation after work. My cheeks are getting hot. I'm not
Nice.
very good with alcohol.
Well, that meat is pretty strong too. I've had it.
Is it? Does it say the percentage?
It should.
10.5%. I guess a beer is like 5% or something. So
Maybe
like,
something like mine is 3.2%.
oh, honey. Okay, so yeah, my cheeks are getting red and hot. That's
Mhm.
okay. So I guess we should preface by saying we know some things. We don't know all things. In real life, it can vary so much by studio and by type of game you're making. Like
Mhm.
when I was working at Amazon, so many processes happened at the same time that it was a little bit overwhelming to think about them separately.
Really? How so?
Like, for example, we had our character designers trying to come up with our characters.
Hmm.
And at the same time, we had the game designers coming up with the game mechanics, and one influences the other, right?
Right.
Then you have like the audio people, and they're also working on their own stuff for concept. It's just, it's a lot. It's a lot. I'm scary. I'm scared. Sorry,
Yeah.
English is hard, and I have alcohol in my hands. Um, yeah, it's scary. I'm nervous about
A
about
lot of
this.
it is like a back and forth too. Like once you see how things come together, and then you want to go back and make revision to the previous things.
Mm-hmm.
And I also would like to say that, yeah, just like Fernanda, I also have limited experience in this. And like even though I'm working in a AAA studio, but like I'm not the the owner of the studio in any mean, right? So like what I know is from like a little tech artist standpoint, and from my previous experiences have been with just like smaller projects that is done within a few months in smaller studios or student games, smaller indie projects
Mm-hmm.
mostly.
Yeah, and then you have games like the one I'm working on right now, which is a live shipped game. So we're still updating things and working on things and making new characters, and the game's been out for 5 years. So
Yeah.
it's crazy. A lot of stuff varies. How do we even talk about this, Nina? I'm so
Well,
scared.
let's start from the beginning. So let's talk about how a game development can get started first, right?
Mm-hmm.
So of course, as we see, the game can basically be divided into like three big phases, maybe, right?
Mm.
Like pre-production and production and then polishing.
Or whatever comes after shipping when you fix bugs.
And yeah, of course, if it's like gonna be a title that is supported after shipping, then yeah, will be like life support or bug fixing and customer support.
Yeah, so should we talk a little bit about the pre-production stage and what we experienced?
Yeah, how was it in your experience, Fernanda?
So I think the only studio that I've been at where we were in a kind of a pre-production stage. It wasn't even pre-production because from my understanding, we didn't have a game idea yet. We were actually doing tools research and doing research on technology. I was helping them research skinning and rigging methods and motion capture implementation. So that was fun. How about you, Nina?
So I've been through a few pre-production experiences with my first company because we were a smaller studio that works on multiple projects at a time, right? What are you doing?
Okay.
Sorry. I just need to ask.
The alcohol is making me really warm and my butt is making my chair sweaty. So I had to leave the chair.
Oh my god, okay.
I'm gonna turn on the air conditioner, but keep talking.
All right,
Keep talking.
all right.
I'm just gonna
chime in if you have any thought, okay? So we would basically get like a prompt from the client, either that or like we have some goals that we would like to achieve. For example, like the client may come to us and say, hey, we want a project that can do ABCD, right? And we would like communicate back and forth to write a more solidified documentation of how that could be. If we translate that then strictly to game, you could probably count that as game design document or concept art. And that usually accompanied with prototyping the experience as well. But prototyping, it's mostly using placeholder assets and or like everything are just like boxes, or if it's a 2D game, then just like some crappily written put together UI stuff like that, just to get the idea across.
Yeah, I remember when I was a student at DigiPen, like sometimes the teachers got mad at us because the artists, they wanted to make the assets semi-final, but the designers were only asking for like very much placeholder assets, so we could prototype the mechanics and see how the mechanics worked before you finish the art asset for it. Yeah, but we just wanted to make things pretty, but that's bad. Don't do that. Make sure you get the stuff across first and then you finish the asset.
Like, I think it's fine if you want to go a bit more fleshed out with the concept art, right? Because sometimes that is very much needed to realize the vision of the game or like the look of the game. But for assets, you really should go like as simple as you can, while it will still serve the purpose, right? Because there's definitely, it's bound to change once the designer puts stuff together. Things will need to be tweaked in height, in length, or even discarded altogether.
Yeah, even after you finish the asset, it might just be nuked out of existence. So get ready. Don't be attached to things, because that totally might happen.
And in that phase, sometimes in some project, if I work with a new group of people, I would also write up some specifications of files, like format of deliverables. So like I would work with the engineers or designers to see what is acceptable and write out. For example, if you're developing a Unity game, I might ask for like, okay, the file of assets have to be OBX or FBX, and how I wanted the textures exported, stuff like that. Naming convention is also a big thing to decide early on if you don't want to deal with tail later.
Yeah. Hey, Nina,
What's up?
what's white boxing? Explain to me.
White boxing is when you punch each other. No, just kidding.
Yes,
It's
absolutely.
when designers would go in and kind of block out the level, block out the experience, but instead of using, fully fleshed out finished assets, right? They will mostly be using primitives, and those in most engines are just white or gray boxes.
Hmm.
And that's why they call white boxing.
Yeah, white boxing is mostly for level design, right?
Yeah, but sometimes an artist could jump into help to, help what okay, like once the designer knows the game is gonna go progress from point A to point B, the artist could go in and help arrange stuff around to guide the eyes or to the goal. So
Yeah, like set dressing.
not necessarily, because set dressing would be with stuff that makes the level pretty, right?
Oh,
But this is still in the white boxing
I
process.
see.
And
I thought that was purely a designer thing. I didn't know that artists could jump into it.
mm, it might not be conventional now that you talk about it, but back in one of my projects, the artists were actually working closely with just with the designer to help, like, okay, like if we have this glowy thing here, it will kind of help lead the eyes of where the player needs to walk to, stuff like that, like nothing fancy.
Yeah, pre-production, it affects all disciplines differently, right? Pre-production for concept art looks entirely different than pre-production for audio or animation or
Yeah.
character. But and at the same time, they all have to communicate with each other, like I mentioned earlier, where the character design was influencing the game mechanics and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I guess I can speak a little bit to the process of rigging and animation.
Yeah, how
Um,
was it for you?
so like I said, at Microsoft, we were doing a lot of research with the motion capture because it was something that we wanted to implement. So we did a lot of research on that. Um, we even received technical training at 343 at their mocap studios. They taught us all of that, and
Oh wow.
well, I documented it um, in our own docs in our website. And yeah, we just did a lot of prototyping with different rigging methods and different skinning methods, trying to put stuff in engine.
So what was the goal? Was it to find the most efficient way?
The goal was to make our character slash animation pipeline better than the one from the previous game, because the studio was not happy with how the characters looked in Forza Motorsport 7. So they were trying to invest a lot of time and money into improving it for the next game, which wasn't even in the works at that point. It was like, oh, because our studio works by shipping a new game every so many years, like
Mm-hmm.
let's already prepare ahead of time for the next game and start this research.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned you would like to explain what are the pre-production stuff on the animation site. So there were some researches, but is there anything else, or would that already be in the production part if you start working on stuff?
So that one is difficult for me to answer because we're always coming up with new content.
Mm-hmm.
When we're preparing to ship a new character, we collect our reference and we're going to talk to the art director, we're going to talk to the animator, we're going to discuss, oh, what type of movement would be cool to have in this attack? What kind of, like, how many buffs would this character have and what would they look like and this kind of stuff. And then most recently, we acquired motion capture technology for our game. So the process has been sped up significantly, and our animator just tries things out in the mocap suit, and that helps with iteration. And then he runs it by the art director, and then they just keep communicating and they keep polishing it. And it's a lot of fun. It's nice to see them work.
That's so cool. I never thought that like a mobile game would be using mocap technology. in animation too. That's really cool.
It's funny because motion capture has been advancing so much in the past 2 or 3 years that I got into the industry, because motion capture was one of the things that was marketable in my skill set. And when I first got into the industry, like it was mostly like, oh, you need like this giant setup with a bunch of cameras in like this huge studio space to record the mocap. But very recently, this new technology came out, which is just a suit, and it
Saw that.
accents. I don't know. I don't remember what it's called, but it's like it completely changed the game, right? Because it's a suit that the animator puts on, and it's wireless. It communicates to the software, I think, via Bluetooth, and you can just shoot mocap freaking anywhere, and it's incredible.
That's amazing. Okay, a little bit sidetracked, but I was just watching some it wasn't documentation. It was like a YouTube video about this VTuber who's a tech artist, an animation tech artist, I think, and she like built an entire 3D environment by herself, concept and model the character, rig and mock, and like use that suit in her stream. So like it would like live capture her motion, as well as like she would use her phone camera, I think, with like some face tracking app to track the face motion, and it just fucking blew my mind. Like how much you could do with, you know, a smaller setting like that without like ridiculous settings like what we always saw in the like movie VFX
Yeah, and it's
backstage.
funny because like it's not optical motion capture, it's the suit itself has sensors in it. It's actually more accurate than the optical setups that a lot of studios have.
Really? Is this a
It's very good.
similar technology with like the haptic suit? You know how like for VR there are these suits that you can wear that like it will give you haptic feedback. So like if you are punched in this area, you feel a nudge on your arm and stuff like that. But it also tracks your motion.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know what haptic suits are. So
I don't know in detail either.
I do know that this suit, I believe that you have sensors that you just attach to your body with like Velcro, and I think they are, gosh, how do you pronounce that? Accelerometers, blah 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 blah. Alcohol. Basically, they track the acceleration of different body parts, and then they put it together in the software.
Gotcha.
It's amazing, Nina. Amazing. We should have an episode about mocap.
Oh yeah, I will be your student and take notes if you would like to present this. Okay, so we kind of got sidetracked.
Mocap is too interesting. I'm sorry.
Oh, it definitely is. Once you get into production phase, would you like to talk about the production phase for the rigging and animating side?
Well, for rigging, I can tell you that having an auto rigger helps. Because rigging is a lot of work.
Like writing a tool for it, right?
Yeah, I guess. See, it's difficult to talk about because I've seen situations where the auto rigger was written beforehand, and many situations where the auto rigger was written after the game had already begun.
So how do you decide? Would that usually be researched beforehand of which route you were gonna pursue, or is that usually like an ongoing discussion even though you're already working on the project?
I mean, they brought me into the team because they wanted an auto rigger, and because tech artists are so hard to find who know how to do rigging and scripting, I feel like it's not nonsense to say that a lot of studios, they just have to start with manual rigging just because they don't have any other choice.
I think that's similar to my project as well. Well, I said mine, but it's not mine. You know what I mean.
You own Halo? Halo?
I wouldn't dare. So like a lot of the environment art tools, you know what? I don't actually know what, I don't remember if I can talk about tools or not. But let's just say that usually in the beginning all the assets will be handmade, I think, or use some existing tools or commercial tools. But the more niche tool that specifically cater to our needs usually are, I think most of them that I've seen are written during production to speed up the pipeline once like we actually know what we wanted. We were like, oh, okay, instead now that we know how to make this one amazing asset, let's make a tool that will make this 100 different times over, but in different variations, for example.
Yeah, it would make sense. It does make sense that first you get the first one done, and then you decide what the tool is gonna have to be, right? I guess it
Yeah.
doesn't make sense to write the tool before you know what you want.
Uh-huh.
I'm
And
talking
like
nonsense.
all the miscellaneous smaller tools are also written afterward as well. Like one of the tech artists were just saying that like, oh, he was so tired of having to manually convert camera point. There were like two formats that we mainly use. And so I just wrote a Python tool for him, like, here, use this. You can plug one in and the other one will come out.
Nice.
Yeah.
The more I drink this mead, the spicier it gets. I don't know what's happening.
Oh, that's a good
Spicy.
That's a good sign.
A lot of my friends in high school, they would get very drunk and like get
in
proud
high
of
school?
it. Yeah. Middle school even. Brazil's crazy like that.
Oh man.
Like I had friends who would drink so much they would pass out in parties and then they would brag about it the next day.
Is this something to be bragged about? I feel like it would make you feel so awful you didn't want to talk about it.
They wore it like a badge of honor. Like I drank so much I passed out. Anyway.
So, okay, in terms of environment production phase, I think, well, for environment art, it'll be a lot of, just making model according to the concept art. And that's what I meant by like, the concept art can be very detailed because that can help with the production of the assets.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be a back and forth effort between the prop artist and the concept artist. It could be a back and forth effort between the concept artist and the prop artist to help improve the visual. And what I've seen is that sometimes all the props will be bring to pretty finalized phase and everything put together in a level already. And then a concept artist will grab some screenshots and do a paint over to see how they can push the visual to the next level. It's kind of cool to see.
We're talking about production, right?
Yeah, we're talking about production.
But you see, like that's the reason I'm afraid of talking about this topic, because it can vary by a lot by studio, and also so many disciplines, it all affects them so differently. Yeah.
Honestly, if I could bring one of the artists on my team in, it would be amazing to like hear them talk about all their vast game dev knowledge. But
are we talking out of our asses here? Maybe
we are, definitely.
Okay. Well, if mediocre men can do it on a podcast, so can we. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, at least we witness it first-handedly, okay?
Yeah, at least we acknowledge it.
Usually, it's also an ongoing effort on the tech art side as well to periodically and oftenly checks in on the performance, and like monitor the quality of the assets. I mean, it could look gorgeous, but who knows? I've seen some modeled out bolts,
Doing performance checks on old assets and realizing that the old assets are bad and you need to redo them, but you don't have time to redo the old assets because nobody has time for anything. Have you been in a similar situation, Nina? Tell me about it.
Well, see, I'm not that high up on the food chain, right? So I just do my due diligence and flag the assets, right? And then I have the producer and the higher ups go figure out how to get that time be through rearrangement of the schedules. Oh, but on my student game, of course, It was so bad, like toward the end where everything is in the game. And like you would be in one room and like you would render freeze the frame and look at what the engine is rendering, right? And it's rendering everything in the next room, and we were just like putting foot on our forehead, like how can we reduce this? And of
Nina,
course,
let me tell you
nothing
something.
had lots.
No, let me tell you something about games at DigiPen. Let me tell
Yes.
you something about fire. So we had a fire particle or a VFX in our game, but for some reason, it kept spawning a new instance of the sprite sheet every frame. So every time you looked at the fire, the frame rate dropped to something ridiculous, like 3 frames per second.
Oh no. Wait, why?
I don't know.
Did you ever figure it out?
I think we just removed the fire from our game.
There was another story. I actually volunteered on another Unreal game during my senior year, and I made them some sweet smoke particle, and then guess what? They ran out of time and they didn't get to put my smoke in the game.
What are we talking about?
I don't know. We're talking about some performance, and then we went on to assets that weren't used. Dude, I remember the moment that we made a decision to only like to be a first person game and only see the feet and the hand at most, so that we don't have to model and animate and rig or rig and animate the body. It was
But that's
great.
a smart decision. That's very smart, actually.
Oh,
Not only you don't have to animate the body moving, you just animate the hands and the feet.
yeah, we didn't have enough animator. So.
That's smart.
Anyway, that would be in perhaps pre-production phase that we decide. What else do you want to talk about, dude?
I have something. Nina, remember when my master's student came? They gave me like a giant list of assets for me to get done, and then you marched into their student workspace and you yelled at them. Remember that? That
I
was
yelled
great.
at them?
You did. You yelled at them.
I don't remember. Wait, what?
You were like, this is too much for her. You were saying something like, oh, this is way too much for her to get done. You desperately need to cut down on these assets. And they were like, okay. And yeah, that was great. Thank you for that.
Well, I'm glad I did that for you. I don't remember that at all. It must be in the blindness of rage that I just don't remember. Well, and the lack of sleep from the Japan, but that's another story. So, once we're done with all the production of different assets, obviously we only talk from the aspects of games that we know, which is art and tech art. But once we're done with the production phase, then what's next, Fernanda?
Shipping.
I thought you were God damn it, Fernanda.
What? What comes after the game being done? You ship it.
I was gonna say like polishing.
I don't know. I see polishing as like the last part of production.
Fine. Well, we're gonna be like that.
Fine.
Are we really gonna publish this episode? Anyway, so when we ship it, there are a few things that we still need to do after shipping. Like if you are a one and done game, there are still things like bug fixing and some customer support stuff that you still need to do, and of course the monetization, the marketing stuff. But do you think it's more difficult to work on a live title versus a ship and done title?
Gosh, I'm not sure, because I feel like working on a live title, it gives me like a bit of security in terms of my job and like employment, because like it's not they're just gonna get rid of me after it's done. It being more difficult. Sure, I mean, it's more difficult because you have to keep working, you have to keep making stuff, but also at least you still have a job, you know what I'm saying? So I'm glad I'm busy at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, but would you enjoy it more if you're just done with it and then you get to go out off and work on a brand new project?
I'm not sure if I would get too attached to it and I feel bad leaving, or if I'd feel sad leaving. I mean, also I haven't had that experience because sure, I shipped Crucible, but also Crucible kind of crashed down real hard. So
That's the one with Amazon, right?
yeah.
Yeah, I actually haven't heard much about that game at all.
Yeah, it like got canceled.
Oh,
You didn't know about that? No, that's
oh,
okay.
I just know that some stuff came out and you were posting about it as well as other people who worked on the title, and then it just went quiet.
See, it went quiet because it died. It
F.
died a horrible death. F in the chat for Crucible.
Oh man, that's sad. All that money and effort. Wow.
Yeah. See,
And,
that's like if you have to take away one lesson from this is don't get too attached to things, like I said before, because this can happen.
and I guess, you know, now that you mentioned that, I feel like I've worked on projects that end up not going anywhere more than like the number of that exceeds the project that is actually shipped and like do well and stuff.
Yeah, the cool thing about working on a live game is that it's shipped and you just keep adding to your portfolio. You don't have to worry about things getting pushed under an NDA forever.
In terms of portfolio, would it be more beneficial though if like someone sees that you have various kind of works from different titles and not just from one thing? Or what do you
Oh
think?
yeah, but like if lots of those titles like you can't show the work because they never shipped, then like what's the point, right? Like
Wait, are you saying that like you cannot put anything from Crucible in your portfolio?
I haven't asked. I've seen some people do it, but like I haven't asked like anyone at Amazon if that's okay. Some people have told me, oh, it's better to ask forgiveness and permission. I'm like, when it comes to Amazon, I'm not so sure.
Yeah.
I'm just not really risking it. I think the best way you can do is, if you're not sure, is tag it in your portfolio as, oh, stuff I did for an unshipped title or something like that. So you don't tell them where is it from.
What are some of the big difference you experience in student games versus professional games so far? I mean, obviously one is paid and one is not, but like
one of them looks good and one of them doesn't.
I mean, in terms of like the production, the pipeline, are there any like big differences?
Well, the biggest difference I can think of is the fact that you have a lot more influence over your student game than like you do in the industry.
True.
Like in my sophomore game, I pitched the idea of some assets and we put the assets in the game. Like I couldn't necessarily do this right now. Although my team is very small, so sometimes we can kind of do that. But bigger teams like the Amazon team or the Microsoft team, that would be a lot harder, right? Because you're more of a tiny cog in the wheel rather than someone who contributes actively to the vision of the game. What about you? What do you think, Nina?
I think it's when it comes to your responsibility in student games. I mean, I guess it also up to the studio size too, but I feel like I was responsible for so many things in the game, and you know, my responsibility is spread out from everything from like concept art to performance, right? But right now my work is more focused in one area. So there are pros and cons of that, but that's like the biggest difference so far. What are some big differences between mobile game, console, and like or PC or even VR? Do we want to talk a bit about that?
So I worked a little bit. Did I work on a console game? I mean, I worked at
Forza,
Microsoft and Forza Motorsport. It was, they also ship it for console, but also for PC. It's funny because when you have a game that goes on both platforms, like you have like two versions of the game essentially. It's
Oh
kind of
yeah,
funny.
definitely, yeah.
But I would say the biggest difference for me is the like how heavy your assets can be. When I worked on Crucible, like our characters were pretty high poly, and so going from Crucible to Galaxy of Heroes, and I love Galaxy of Heroes, but it's like a very stark, is that the word?
Yeah,
Stark
yeah.
difference between how humble is not the word, how conservative we are with the number of polys in our characters, and even other things like, oh, how many, like, what's the size of the sprite sheet on this character for this one VFX? Like, we can't be, oh, we can't be too heavy on this sprite sheet, you guys.
Some things go for VR experiences as well. Super low poly.
Yeah, and I remember when I worked on the VR game for my master's student team, not only had to be low poly, the textures couldn't be too detailed because it actually contributes English. It contributes to the motion simulation sickness of the player if the textures are too detailed.
Really? Huh.
Crazy stuff. Crazy stuff.
Is it also because it tanks the game's frame rate, and when it's not 60 FPS, it makes you more motion sick as well? Or is it the details that contributes to motion sickness?
I feel like the frame rate might have something to do with it, but I think the biggest emphasis when we were told that was that it was like the repetition of lines and noise in the textures. It was too much noise for your eyes to perceive at once in that environment, and that's what makes you kind of simulation sick. But I'm pretty sure frame rate has something to do with it too, right?
Yeah, definitely. Like one of the projects I worked on, like I was getting really, it was fine at first when it was pretty bare bone, but once the assets started to get in, and before we got around to optimizing everything, the frame rate was bad, and I consistently had motion sickness from it. So yeah.
Yeah, they told us, oh yeah, whenever you test your VR game, make sure you keep a vomit bucket by your by your player at all times.
Yeah. And like when you say console, it's also varies very greatly. Like everything from like Xbox One to this latest Xbox Series X, the spec is like
The specs are higher. Oh yeah, I mean they're higher because it's newer
sorry, I
generation.
was trying to make ARM to show like a crescendo. So like for Xbox One, everything has to be rather low poly, and the memory is also a big issue that I have to deal with. That like it's not just like, oh, this is fine because the game can run at this higher quality assets, right? But like the console itself just doesn't have enough space to fit all the triangles and all the textures in there.
Yeah, it reminds me when I saw where they announced The Witcher 3 for the Nintendo Switch, and you can tell where the downgrade happened. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, that Geralt model was a little bit chunkier than I remember. You know what I'm saying?
There's actually a YouTube channel dedicated to playing games in potato mode. Like they would turn everything down in the lowest quality, and everyone just looks like potatoes. It's playable though.
Oh, it must run super fast.
I bet. Actually, this job dealing with optimizing assets make me learn a lot of human skills, like how to deal with the artist and like chopping their assets quality in a peaceful way and not enrage them.
Really?
Yeah. I actually got yelled at, or like someone got mad and went to talk to my supervisor.
Oh my gosh. But you're just doing a job. Well, I guess I can also understand from
They
their
weren't being an
perspective.
asshole about it, but like, they were expressing their displeased.
Because you made their asset ugly?
Uglier. But
Oh, Jesus.
no, I'm not saying that their asset was ugly. Their asset was gorgeous, but I made it uglier. It's not ugly, it's still like a gorgeous asset, but less gorgeous, I guess.
A little bit less, a little bit of ugly on top.
Which, I mean, honestly, since, I came from like an art background, an art degree, I didn't like come from tech from the beginning, right? So it also kills my soul a little bit every time I have to like skip a lot. And I'm like, oh, it's a little blurry. Like, you probably can't tell, but I know. God knows.
Yeah, I understand. I'm also in the same boat where, you're a tech artist, so you have to do it. I know what I have to do, but I don't know if I have the strength to do it. Well, we should wrap it up. Like, did we talk about things today? We did. Was it efficient? No. So what did we talk about? We talked about the game dev pipeline, and
Yes.
it varies a lot from studio to studio. We gave you a little bit of our experience on each part of that pipeline. Well, it wasn't really about, I guess pipeline is the wrong word. I would say more about the process of game dev.
Yeah, sharing experience on game dev process.
Yeah. Yes.
We shall rename this episode to that.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Well, thank you for listening to our episode. We'll see you guys in the next one.
Yeah,
Hope
sorry this wasn't coherent. What? Yeah. Yeah.